Greetings, Ron Smalek here with another Pokemon Go update. This episode I'm going to talk about some of my progress in the game. I'm going to talk about some game mechanics that I have learned about through the community, and hopefully you will find them interesting. I am only going to be showing screenshots and still photos from my journey. No video. I don't have any way of capturing video on my iPhone, and I didn't take any video on any of the places I visited. So take a look at the images if you're interested in seeing some fun and some really beautiful places and some cool Pokemon. Alright, so this vlog covers up to my day 9, which was July 16th, and it started, this starts around Thursday or so of the prior week. Today, recording this being Sunday, the 16th being Saturday. So from Thursday to Saturday. I actually started off in New Jersey. I was on a business trip, and I was at the airport. I was at EWR, which is Newark Airport. And as you can see by this screenshot that I tweeted out, I had a number of flight cancellations and delays due to storms. So I amused myself wandering around the airport and catching Pokemon and naming them after my current plight. And I tweeted out saying, can anyone guess my Pokemon Go story without the details? I finally found a place called Nana's Meatball Kitchen, which happened to be in between a couple Pokestops and gyms. There were 2 lures that were overlapping, and I threw an incense on, so I sat and had some food there while I was waiting and catching a bunch of Pokemon. And I ended up actually hatching a Squirtle out of a Poke Egg, which I thought was very interesting. And the thing that I learned about these egg hatching is there's 3 types of eggs. There's the 2-kilometer eggs, the 5-kilometer eggs, and the 10-kilometer eggs. And if you go on Cerebi.net, you can actually see the list of what possible Pokemon come out of these eggs. It's really interesting. Now, if you're like me, you probably have, a ton of 5-kilometer eggs, which those contain a bunch of different common Pokemon, some of which I haven't gotten yet, so I'm still hatching 5 kilometers. But the 2-kilometer eggs, which I thought were going to be garbage, are actually really good, because in the 2-kilometer eggs, you can get starter Pokemon, and you can get low-level rares. I call them rares. I mean rare in terms of what I've seen in my game. Such as Geodude and Pikachu, which are pretty hard to catch and find in the wild. I have not seen a Geodude in the wild, and I had a random Pikachu just pop up and caught one, so I don't have very many Pikachu. And then the 10-kilometer eggs, as you may guess, have chances of getting greater rarity Pokemon. I saw some Hitmonlees, Hitmonchans, and things like that in those eggs. So go to Cerebi.net if you want to see all the possible Pokemon you can get from eggs. And it makes me think that the Pokemon coins I'm saving up from Gym Defender may go towards more incubators. So we'll see. Speaking of Gym Defenders, there's a mechanic that really bothers me. Actually, there's several of the game mechanics that actually kind of bother me from a game design standpoint. But one that has been tricky for me to wrap my head around is this Gym Defender bonus. Now, the way that it works is if you defeat a gym and it currently has no team in it, and you install your Pokemon, or if there is a gym that is currently held by your team, you can add a Gym Defender Pokemon to a gym, and your Pokemon will defend it in battle. Now, from what I have seen, it's almost impossible to keep any Pokemon in a gym for the full 21 hours you need to reset your Gym Defender bonus counter. So to me, the best strategy at this point, because the game is so popular, these gyms are trading hands very quickly. As soon as you put a Pokemon in a gym, I would go into the shop in your game's menu, and I would go and look in the upper right and click on that shield icon and just get your bonus items right away, because even the time it takes to go, unless you have gyms that are very close to each other, the time it takes for me to go conquer one gym, put in a Pokemon to defend it, drive to the next gym or walk to the next gym, take over that one, the first gym is probably already beaten. So I understand that the Gym Defender bonuses are based on the number of gyms you can currently hold, but because they're being turned over so quickly, I'm just grabbing the bonus right away. There was also on Friday, I took my son to his camp, and we left the house a little bit early, so we stopped at some Pokestops on the way. And we went to a cemetery. Actually, I went and visited where my mom's buried. And there were tons of Pokestops in the cemetery, basically all the different statues. And there was actually a gym there. And then across the street from the cemetery is a local college. And so I witnessed several people driving from the college across into the cemetery, getting out of their cars, going and fighting the gym, and then getting back in their cars and leaving the cemetery. So not being there to visit or pay respects to anyone, just there for Pokemon. And I'm not going to comment whether I feel like this is acceptable behavior or not, but I'm just throwing it out there for your opinion. I did also that day on Friday see my first Gyarados. It was not in the wild. It was actually guarding a gym, but I thought it was kind of cool. And if you don't already know, you need 400 Magikarp candy to evolve a Magikarp into a Gyarados. As far as I know, that is the highest number of candy you need for any Pokemon in the game. It sounds ridiculous, but if you are able to find a water area where you can catch Magikarps, it's actually not that bad. It's less than 100 Magikarp, because each one that you catch, you get 3 candy, I believe, and each one that you transfer, you get 1. So right there, that's 4 candy per Magikarp. So 400 divided by 4. If you hatch Magikarp from eggs, which you can do, you'll get quite a bit more candy to get this quicker. So it's not actually that bad, but it does take quite a long time. I think I have somewhere around like 40 candy myself, so I have not caught very many Magikarp at this point. And I will also comment that of all the gyms I've seen around my area in Illinois, as well as New Jersey, where I've traveled, and 2 airports, quite a number of gyms. The Pokemon that I see most often in gyms are Hypno, Pidgeot, Raticate, and the Eevee evolutions. And it makes sense to me because these pretty much have the base Pokemon that are most often found in the wild. Now, when I play the typical Pokemon games, none of these 4, maybe the Eevees, but none of these 4 are typically the ones that I actually want as my main or as part of my normal team that I go around with. Perhaps the Pidgeot for his fly ability in the games, but typically not. And it makes me think that, that's one mechanic that Pokemon Go is really lacking, is your ability to really connect with your Pokemon and make them your main based on the Pokemon that you like the most, unless you happen to like one of these 4 kinds of Pokemon, which are so common and will most likely be the highest level ones in your collection. We're kind of missing the ability to sort of take a Pokemon from the lowest level you catch it, raise it up through the ranks and effectively level it up for a decent cost and kind of have it as your companion. So just a commentary. I also learned of a support link from Niantic being one of the companies that makes Pokemon Go, where you can submit and request Pokestops. You need to provide a picture of the Pokestop. You need to provide a text narrative of why it should be a Pokestop and the GPS coordinates. So where I live, we're in a brand new subdivision. There's one Pokestop fairly close, but it's across some train tracks and a major road at a church, and so kids can't easily get there. So there are no walkable or bikeable Pokestops, in my opinion, in my neighborhood or the next neighborhood over. So kids in our neighborhood, I think, are going to pretty rapidly burn out on this game if they can't get to anything interesting. So I've requested one at a park, a brand new park in the middle of my neighborhood. So we'll see. I imagine Niantic is overwhelmed with these requests, but we'll see. Now, one thing that we did on Saturday is my son Matt and I, and also my son David, we all went to a local area in the beautiful, recently renovated downtown of Elgin, Illinois, right on the Fox River. We went to a place called Walton Island Park, which is also bordered by the Hemmons Auditorium, which is a big auditorium where a lot of plays and musical performances are put on, and the Gale Borden Library, which is a big, huge library. We went to this area that had tons and tons of art, which means tons of Pokestops, overlapping Pokestops, Pokemon gyms, and we just walked around for a couple hours. Very, very beautiful place, but also lots of Pokemon, and best of all, at least to me, so far, is a lot of water-type Pokemon. Now, I would say there were so many people there that and on Saturday the servers kept going up and down, so it was actually pretty hard. Like, if you used your lucky egg, which lasts about 30 minutes, you maybe only got about 10 minutes out of use because the servers would crash and it would glitch out and all this stuff. But there were so many people walking around playing Pokemon, and at one point there was actually a wedding being held out on this beautiful island, and so they had to keep shooing Pokemon players away from the wedding. I thought that was pretty funny. All the wedding photos are going to have people in the background walking around looking at their phones. So yeah. So then Saturday night, I actually was playing around in my neighborhood, walking the dog, and trying to track down a Rhyhorn using the nearby method. I discovered something that I am convinced is true, and I've had at least one person on Reddit say they've noticed the same thing, but I don't see this being talked about yet. And that is that if you are on a Wi-Fi connection, so connected to your home internet network, there are Pokemon, rarer Pokemon, at least from the Pokemon Go perspective, that will show up more often than when you're just on cellular. You seem to only get common Pokemon with the occasional rare. And I thought this was very interesting, and I'm puzzled by this, in fact. And the way that the two pieces of data that I'll submit to this being true is that when I was in New Jersey, I was in my hotel room, and I saw a Growlithe pop up on my radar. And I thought, okay, it must be like, after a certain amount of time, new Pokemon show up. And I went down so I was in my room. He was about 3 steps away. I went down to the lobby. I went out of the hotel, like immediately out of the hotel, and kind of went around the hotel and observed the nearby list, because I didn't know the tracking trick yet. But I saw him moving up and down in the list of nearby Pokemon. So I kind of figured out which direction he was in. And as I moved away from the hotel, suddenly he would disappear. And when I came back in range of the hotel, he would reappear. And I went 360 degrees around the hotel. I couldn't figure out why he kept disappearing and reappearing. I was finally able to locate him in a corner of the parking lot. But what was actually happening was that I was connected to the hotel's Wi-Fi, and when I got too far away from the hotel, I would switch to cellular and he would disappear. When I'd come back into range of the hotel's Wi-Fi, he would reappear. Then, last night, I spent a lot of time in my neighborhood chasing around a Rhyhorn because the same thing was happening. He was 3 steps away, and I could get him to the point where he was 2 steps away around my block, but as soon as I left my home Wi-Fi range, the Rhyhorn would disappear off the radar. I walked back into my driveway, he would reappear, and I went in 360 directions all around the neighborhood, could not find him. I even was sitting in my driveway with the with the Wi-Fi on, could see him on the radar. I closed the app, turned off the Wi-Fi, so it was just in cellular, turned the app back on, no Rhyhorn. Close the app, turn the Wi-Fi back on, open the app, there's the Rhyhorn again. So there is something about cellular data that you are not getting the maximum Pokemon on your radar. And that, to me, it's got to be a design. I'm hoping it's a design choice, but I think it's a poor one, or it's a really weird bug. So I submitted it to Niantic, but if you've seen this kind of behavior, I'd love for you to check out my Reddit and thumbs it up and leave a comment or put a comment in this video. Okay, so I did talk about the Pokemon eggs already. The last thing, so as I mentioned, this blog, it's getting a little bit long, but it covered 9 days or essentially the last 3 out of 9 days of my Pokemon journey. My Pokemon journey has been 9 days so far. And the thing I am absolutely the most proud of overall is that I personally have walked almost 60 kilometers. I've gone 59.8 kilometers with the app on. That's not counting any walking around without the app, which, if you do the math, is 37.14 miles in 9 days, which is average above 4.13 miles per day. So my exercise is way up thanks to Pokemon Go. I've also noticed that I've collected a total, or caught a total of 461 461 total Pokemon. 69 of those have been unique, and I have seen 70 Pokemon. One Pokemon that I've actually seen and thrown balls at got away. That was a Machop. I haven't been able to find one again. I've seen shadows of a lot of Pokemon on the radar. A lot of times when I was like in a cab or in a situation, I could not really go search for it or just couldn't find it. So Dragonite, Rhyhorn, Graveler, or Golem, I'm not sure which it was actually. Vulpix, Kadabra, Slowbro, Kingler, Cubone, Lickitung, and my son and I, while driving home from camp one day, he saw a Porygon on his radar, which I didn't see, but we tracked that thing around and around, and we finally believed that it was inside of a local business campus called Motorola. Ironically, that is a technology company. They make phones. That's probably what they're best known for at the moment. But we believe the Porygon was inside their gated off parking lot. So we couldn't get to it, but I thought that was ironic. I have seen on my older son's phone, he has caught a Mankey and a Tauros, which I'm quite jealous of. I'm quite jealous of Hawkminer, who caught a Lapras. Now, he actually caught the Lapras several days ago, but I forgot to report on it, so nice catch. My friend Sean V. Martin, who is my YouTube mentor, if you will, caught a Magmar, sent me a text of that. And then Falm is the first person that I know to get a gold badge for catching 200 normal type Pokemon. And also earlier in the week, he caught a Snorlax on an upended couch in an alley near his home. So a lot of my friends are catching unique things that I don't have, which is awesome. I, was kind of worried that this game would burn out too quickly. And the fact that I've caught 69, it's like around a third of the Pokemon so far. Of the catchable ones, not counting the rares, it's still like a third, or maybe it's like 3/5, something like that. Because like the evolves, you can it all depends on catching candies. I have a whole perspective on this whole candies and evolving, but I'm going to save that for next week because I'm right at 20 minutes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please, in the comments, share your Pokemon Go experience if you've had one. If you haven't, I would love to know if you're planning on getting Pokemon Go when it comes to your country, etc. And I really wish everyone happy catching.